Okay, hello students. Today we are looking at doing some more drawing, but this time getting some of our shapes moving and also keeping them within the bounds of the screen, so staying within the screen as they are moving. Okay, so to start off with, I'm giving you some basic code just like before. These are in the comments. Import a Pygame, we've got some colors being created. This is probably the most important bit here, where we are setting up our screen size 640 by 480. That's going to be very important for today. And then, just like last time, we've got our clock. We've got our main loop program here, so while done equals false. So this is going to keep going round. And inside the loop, the drawing section we will need today to draw things. Okay, so you can see I've left in here the screen.fill white, so we've got a nice white screen. So at the moment, all we've got is a blank white screen like this, which is fine, but let's get something working. So the very first stage we're going to do, we are going to draw a shape. Okay, so within our game, we're going to draw a shape inside the draw section here. So just after we fill the screen, remember the order is very important, we're going to draw our shape. Pygame.draw.rect. I'm going to draw a rectangle, but you could draw a circle if you want to, or any other shape. The surface we're drawing on, which is screen, a color, I'm going to choose red. Then I'm just going to give some basic coordinates, 100x by 100y, so that's going to put it within our screen at 100xy. And then the size of our shape, I'm going to do it 50 by 50, so 50 pixels wide by 50, and then close. So we've got all the properties like last lesson we needed for this. And if we run it, we should have a basic shape on the screen. Now you notice here it's 100x across by 100y down, and then 50x, 50 width and 50 height. So that shows us why it's in that location. But notice at the moment our shape is not moving, it's static on the screen and doesn't do much. So today we are going to get it moving. Okay, the first thing we're going to do to get things moving, at the moment our shape is just static, it's just being drawn in the same place every time. But we obviously need to change these coordinates here. We need to change these values. Okay, so the x and y changes. The sizes can stay the same, but the x and y needs to change as it's moving. So before the game up here, so before the while loop starts, so I'm going to put a little section of the code here, and we are going to do a little comment here that says setting shape movement. So this is where we're going to put in some values. Okay, now we need to give the shape a speed of x and a speed of y. So I'm going to call this one shape speed x. Okay, and for the moment I'm just going to set it to 5. So it's moving 5 in the x direction. And guess what? We're going to do the same thing for shape speed y. So we've given it an x and a y speed, because it could just be moving along one direction or the other, but we want to move it in both directions. So I've given it a speed. Okay. Now the other thing I'm going to do is to also set the starting x and y position here as well. So we've got the speed value, but at the moment, if you look down here inside our loop, I've actually hard-coded, written in the values for x and y. Okay, but I'm actually going to change these into variables, and you'll see why in a second. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to simply put in shape x and shape y. Shape x. At the moment, I've just set it to 100, so let's leave it as it is, and shape y equals 100. Okay, so we've actually got our starting position for the shape here, x and y, and our speed of the shape there. Okay, and then finally, if I go back to our shape, so those are our values created before the loop starts. Go down to my shape here. Instead of the 100 here, I'm going to put shape x and shape y. Now that technically shouldn't really do anything yet. Okay, if I preview our shape, it's still there. It's not moving yet. Okay, so why isn't it moving? But because inside our loop, I haven't actually incremented or made the shape XY change yet. So within our loop here, just underneath where I have drawn my shape here, we are going to do it so the X and Y changes every time it goes around the loop. So get shape moving. So how do we do that? Shape x, so the x position of the shape, we are going to add to it. Now notice this, plus equals, that is going to add to the shape x, and I'm going to add on the amount of speed. Okay, so every time it goes round, it's going to add the amount of speed to our current x position for the shape. Now if you remember, our speed was set up here, 5, so it's going to add 5 to the x every time it goes round the loop. And guess what, we're going to do the same with the y. Shape y plus equals shape speed y. So every time it goes round the loop and redraws the rectangle object, it's going to add the speed to it, which is 5. So it should move position. Now if we run it now, we should have a moving shape. Look at that, that's good. Now watch our problem. Whee! It's gone off the screen. Okay, so at the moment it's continuing to go on forever. We can't see it anymore because it's gone off the screen, but it is moving at least. Okay, so we've used some variables to change the position of the XY of the shape every time it redraws it. Now obviously we don't want it to fly off the screen, we want it to stay on the screen. We want it so that when the shape gets down to the bottom position here, it bounces off the bottom and then goes to the side, bounces off the side, and keeps going around our screen. Now remember, our screen up here, the size of the screen is very important, 640 by 480. We need to know that in order to do this next section. So down here, inside our loop where we are drawing our shape, here, just after where we said get the shape moving, we're going to add another one. I'm going to say bounce shape on edge of screen. Edge of screen. We're going to do it so it bounces on the edge of screen. Now to do that, we're going to have to check the x and the y position of the shape and see where it is, basically. So have a look at this code. If shape y, if the y position of the shape is bigger than 480, okay, or the shape y position is less than 100. Okay, so basically our screen, remember, goes between 0 and 480 for the y. If it goes bigger or less than either of those, we want the shape to change direction and go the other way. So how do we do that? We do shape speed y, so we're going to change the shape speed of it going in the y direction, and we're going to change it to shape speed y times by -1, which is going to reverse the direction. It's going to reverse the direction it's going for the y. Okay, guess what? We also need to do for x. So if shape x is bigger than 640, remember that's our width of the screen, okay, or shape x is less than 0, which is the top of the screen, sorry, the side of the screen, we are going to do the same thing. Shape speed x equals, and we're going to reverse it, shape speed x multiplied by -1 to reverse the speed. So we've got checking the y coordinates here and reversing it if it goes out of bounds, and checking the x coordinates and reversing it if it goes out of bounds. Okay, let's see what happens here. So now I've got my shape, and I look very carefully. It goes to the edge and still goes off. Okay, let me refresh that again. I think something strange went a bit funny there. Press it again. Okay, so here's our shape, and oh, there we go. Okay, right, so it's bouncing. Now notice though, the shape is actually on the top and the left, it's okay. When it goes to the bottom, it's actually going beyond the edge of the screen. That is because the actual shape is checking the top edge, the top coordinates of the shape, the top left hand part of the coordinates. So actually it will not bounce until the shape has gone off the screen and got to the top corner of the screen. You see it leaves the screen there until the top corner of the screen gets to the edge, and then it bounces. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to bring the shape back so it detects it as soon as the shape is about to start leaving the screen rather than it's left the screen. Now to do that, if we go back to our code, we can remember that our shape when we create it here is 50 by 50. So what we're going to do is within our shape Y here, we're going to do -50. So that is going to bring the shape back, and it will bounce it if it goes just about to go off the edge, basically. And again, the same for this one. 640 -50, which is the size of the shape. Okay, so I've just put -50 on those two there to keep it from leaving the screen before it bounces. Now if we run it again, now you should see the shape bouncing, there we go, on the edge of the screen rather than leaving it and then bouncing. Okay, so we've now got our basic bouncing shape within the screen. Now that works and that's okay, but at the moment it's very boring because it always kind of starts in the same position and always kind of follows the same sort of pattern because it's just bouncing around the screen mathematically in the same position. So what we're going to do is we're going to make that a bit more random. So if we go back up to where we have set the shape movement settings here, X, Y, speed and position, we're going to change that so it's randomized. Now to do that we need to use the random library. So at the very top of your code, this is important, we're going to import random. So it knows how to use randomizing. Okay, that gives us all the features of random numbers and stuff like that. Import random at the top, importing the library of random numbers and things. Then down here in our code, we're going to change it. So instead of 5, so instead of it always being in the same speed, we're going to do random.randint or random integer, and I'm going to do a speed between 3 and 10. So the speed isn't always 5, it can be between 3 and 10. And guess what? Let's do exactly the same thing for the y speed. Random.randint between 3 and 10. So that's going to randomize our speed of it moving. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the starting position. So it doesn't always start in the same place on the screen. So random.randint. Let's do it between 50 and 400. Now remember the size of the screen is 640 by 480. So this is going to put it somewhere within the middle of the screen. So it's not always starting in the same place. And I'm going to do the same for this. Now you could change around these coordinates. You could work out the exact position, or you could start in the middle, for example, but this is just giving us a bit of randomization. So I've now randomized the speed of our shape, and I've randomized the starting position of our shape, so it doesn't always start in the same place every time. Now if we run it, whoops, we've got an error. Random, oh look at that, spelling mistake, great. So again, be very careful for spelling mistakes and look at the syntax errors. Random, apologies. Here we go. So do you notice it started right near the bottom? Okay. Speed doesn't look that much different, but it started completely randomly within the room. Let's run it again. Oh, definitely going faster this time. Look at that. It's speeding along, and it started going at an angle very differently, a lot more to the right this time. So you're now randomizing the speed that it's moving. Okay. Okay. So we now know how to move objects, and we know how to keep them in the room. Let's just quick recap. So remember, we've drawn our shape just like before inside the drawing section. We have used variables to make it move. We're adding to the variables every time with the shape x and y. And then we've used code here to keep the shape within the bounds of the room, 640 by 480, and -50 to bring it back from the edge, remember. Okay. And then finally we randomized it by using the random functions to randomize the speed and the starting coordinates. Okay, here is your challenge, students. So once you've got it randomized, I'd like to see if you can then do it so that as your shape bounces within the screen, so there's my shape moving around, as it bounces to the edge, it says a text to show that it's bounce. And you can also notice I've done it so it changes colour as it bounces as well. So as your shape here, as it reaches the edge, it detects that it's got to the edge and says bounce, bounce. And I've got a colour change in here as well, okay? Can you do either of those? Can you get it to detect and show some text as it's bouncing around the screen to show the message that it's bounced? There's your challenge for today. Good luck and see you in lesson.